Hello. How are you guys? I'm excited to be here live on Facebook. As you see, we changed days. Now we are live on Thursdays. To be honest with you, Tuesdays, I feel like life was a little too hectic and I needed a minute to breathe and to make sure that I was ready for you. And I feel like I was always rushing. So I'm excited that we're here today and that hopefully you're joining me live. Anyway, we're going to talk about branding and why it's important. Whether you have a personal brand, whether you have your business, it's really important to be recognized for who you are. And when I'm talking about branding, I'm talking about different parts of the branding. Of course, you have to have a logo or a name for your company, but you also need to know who your target is and your target audience, and be prepared to create content that will connect with your target audience. That's why anything you do, you can't take it lightly. I mean, choosing your colors on the brand is important. That's why, for example, I will never let someone do graphic design in my company who is not a graphic designer. It's so important that they learn the psychology of the color or the psychology of the types or the fonts. I'm super picky about fonts. It drives me crazy. I'm that person that can see the different gap, the little gap between the letters, and I can tell you what something is off. Like, those things are super important to communicate your brand and to tell who you are. Spacing communicates. White space communicate. White space is not bad, it's good, but you need to make sure that we're getting the right space and not whatever. So that's what it's important. I'm trying to make sure that I have it open here to see if there are comments, because I would love to address any questions that you might have. So with what that said, let's talk a little more about the brand guide and what's the brand guide. Do you know when you buy a product, there's a manual, and it always there's a manual that explains how the product works. Well, here is exactly the same. You are the product, or your brand is a product, and we need to make sure that everyone who's going to be working with the product, they know how it works. So things that are important to put in your brand guide are, well, first of all, your logo. As we discussed before, the logo has to have a reason why you did that logo. It needs to not only connect with you, but it needs to connect with your target market. Something super important, call me old school on this, but a logo always needs to work in black and white or grayscale. Think about this way. Let's just pretend for a second that we don't have a color printer, or even that we need to send a fax. Would that logo work? The other person who receives the paper or in the print or the fax will be able to see the logo. That's really important. That is a test that it will tell you if your logo works or not with color-wise. Also, what is your logo for? Is your logo to be used in digital? Is your logo to be used in banners? Do you have different versions of your logo? If you do, the important thing here is that you think about digital. Digital, can you have a very tall logo? Absolutely not, because if you put it on a website, on top will look really small. So you don't want that. I mean, it will look really large, or you need to make it really small to fit and nobody will see it. Landscape logos are best, but then let's think about social. Social, usually you have a little space, a circle. So you need to make sure that your logo fits nicely there, or you have a version of your logo that will fit. So those are important things and notions about the logo. Something else, every time you have a logo, you need, as we say, that it works in black and white, but also you need to make sure that you have the colors in hex, that is for digital, in RGB, that is for anything that is video, or CMYK that is for printing. You need to make sure you have the codes of each one. So whatever method you show in your logo in, it works for you. Okay, that's first thing first. Then we're gonna be talking about fonts. Having fonts that they're gonna represent your brand. To me, it's always important to have at least 3 fonts that you're gonna be, and explain how you're gonna be using those fonts. Remember, that's what is gonna make you stand out between you and your competitors, because that's why brands are well known. And it doesn't matter if they work in China or in Argentina or in Pakistan, whatever your brand is worked on, if you have this style guide, everything should be the same. Something super important with logos, which is how you use it and how you don't use it. If you use it in a certain background or use it in white. So it's really important to put the do's and don'ts. Okay, we talk about logos. Let me sip a little bit of my coffee. And we can continue. Okay, we talk about logos and we talk about the use of fonts. Okay, there are some brand guides that can be 10 pages. There are some brands that can be 150 pages, depend where you put it on products or how you, in different usages that you give. So today we're gonna be talking about the very simple version of it. To me, is something important to put is the voice, not only the colors, not only the fonts, but also words that the brand use and words that the brand doesn't use. And so again, you can be cohesive. Remember, we're going to be using your brand and you're going to be using it in your website. You're going to be using it in social media. You're going to use it in magazines, maybe in television. You never know where you're going to use it, but you will have to adapt to the medium. Like, for example, if I send a message in Instagram, it will be very different than a message that I'm going to be sending in Twitter. In Instagram, I can write long text. In Twitter, I have a count. So we need to adapt the native language of the brand, but the brand voice needs to be always the same. Also, we know that our target audience might vary, depends of where you are. There's this meme, I think, that it tells you it says, no, I cannot make your ugly logo bigger. And it's not about making it bigger or smaller or ugly or not. It needs to work for your target audience. Your target audience need to, like, for example, if you're having a vintage company, it makes sense to use a vintage font. But if you want to have a super modern, stylish company, of course, a vintage font won't work with it. You need to represent your brand. The same with the voice, the words that you will use, the mentality, how you will be inclusive, how you will communicate with your audience will be formal, informal. I remember that we work in a world ruled by SEO. So when you're going to involve always writers for your brand, it's important that you give, it's essential, more than important, that you give them the tools to be able to do their job. I feel like I'm talking so fast, but stop me if you have any questions. Or if you're not live now, I'm happy to answer any questions that you can leave in the comments later. So that works also with personal brands. When, like, for example, everyone has a style of how they dress or like things that you prefer to work. For example, V-neck is my thing. I feel more comfortable in them. It looks like, I feel like it fits me better. So that's my thing. For me, being with the turtleneck will be really weird and it wouldn't be part of my brand. For example, dark nails always been my brand. I'm trying to go lighter, but it's not me, and that's my personal brand. So you just need to make sure that you are cohesive. If you It would be very odd if from one day to another you see me with flashy pink light and nails. I'm very classic. So that's not me, and it wouldn't be my brand. It would be something that is completely off. So your brand, your personal brand, your business brand is always the same. Remember, be cohesive and be constant. It doesn't mean that later on you can make changes. It doesn't mean that there are some places that you can be a little more playful, like social, but the use of your brand and your name brand and your logo always need to have a plan. It needs to have this tutorial or how to use it. Well, I hope this was a short one, but I think I went fast and I gave you a lot of information, and I will see you next week. See you soon. Bye.